Once upon a time, there was a couple who lived in a tropical paradise.
And every day, they enjoy a perfect life with no hardships.
Until one day, a snake told them to eat a cursed fruit.
And because of that, God banished them from Eden.
Once upon a time, there was a computer programmer named Thomas.
And every day, he worked at a big company and got up at night to some mischiefs.
Until one day, he met Morpheus and found out he was living in the Matrix.
And because of that, he had no choice but to save mankind.
Once upon a time, there was a farm boy named Luke.
And every day, he did his chores and dreamed of going to flight school.
Until one day, his wacky robot drove off and led him to Obi-Wan Kenobi.
And because of that, he became a Jedi Knight.
Today, we're going to tell you why you want me in your next presentation, that element of drama. When I talk about drama, I don't mean flashy cars, fire, overzealous teenagers. No, what I'm talking about is that element of drama you find in every good story and every memorable movie. And they all have a common way to lay this out. First, they set the scene, the once upon a time. They tell you the status quo, and every day, something happened. But then I come in, add that tension, that drama, that pulls the audience in, has them waiting there on the edge of their seat for sometimes hours, listening, watching, until you finally give them that resolution. So you can incorporate this drama into your presentation because the human brain is wired to seek it, to want it. One side just craves it, but the other side will not rest until it has that resolution. So with drama, you can use that to hook your audience in, capture their attention, distill that information in a form that everyone is familiar with, and ultimately lead them with a message that is much more memorable and much more effective. And so Ross will tell you exactly how to do this in your presentation.
Hopefully, Mr. Drama, William, has now motivated you to build drama into your communication. But the natural next question you might be asking is how? And in a word, you can use contrast. What do I mean by contrast? What I mean is you can make the moments of tension stand out from the other points in your story, from the other points in your communication, as well as from all of the other things that your audience might be used to. And I don't think you'll be surprised to find out that contrast can come in three general categories: visual, vocal, and verbal contrast. And so I'll talk about each one. With visual contrast, there are several things that you can do to visually have you visually stand out in that moment of drama. So, for example, one thing you can do is have your own appearance stand out. This is something, hopefully, that you noticed from William at the beginning of the presentation. Just by the way he moved and what he was wearing, he was able to increase your attention to that moment of drama. Second, you can have your visual aids stand out. So hopefully everybody's familiar with the commercial in 1984 for the Apple II. And that commercial was so powerful because it used visual contrast on two levels. First, in the commercial, the woman who throws the hammer at Big Brother was set apart visually from all of the other suit-laden zombies like ourselves with William in the commercial. And second, the commercial itself stood out visually from all of the other commercials in that Super Bowl, so that people there at the time and even now are talking about how memorable that was and how much their attention was grabbed just as soon as the commercial started. There are several things you can do vocally as well. One way you can have vocal contrast strengthen those moments of drama is to insert more pausing. And another way is through dynamic volume. So for example, once upon a time, there was a farm boy named Luke. And every day, he would do his chores and dreamt of going to flight school. Until one day, he followed his quirky robot and met Obi-Wan Kenobi. So that's an example of how potentially using volume and pausing can heighten that moment of drama. Finally, verbally, there are several ways that you can structure what you say or use different words to strengthen the effect that tension has on how your audience remembers and is engaged by these dramatic moments. One example we've actually already learned in class, which is parachuting in, cutting most of the preamble or even starting with the tense moment. So I could say, face to face with Obi-Wan Kenobi, Luke knew his life would never be the same. Yesterday, on and on and on. And now you're totally engaged. What happened? Why is he facing Obi-Wan Kenobi? So that's one example. Another example, actually Lewis helped to show us a few months ago when we were working with Ken. This is for cohort B. He was talking about this friend who had been with him through all of these struggles. And he talked about this struggle and how the friend had been with him, and that struggle and how the friend had been with him. And only at the end did he tell us the friend was video games. And so that's an example of a delayed reveal where we were engaged, and we still remember that because that moment of tension was delayed until the end. Now Bryce will help show us how he's making this work with a real problem he's facing right now.
So this is not a drill. This is an actual pitch for my own startup. This is something that I'm working on right now. It's near and dear to me, and it's not an exaggeration to say it's life or death that this pitch is memorable, influential, and persuasive. And I'm going to give you two different versions of the pitch. The first one is just going to focus on the facts. I'm going to tell you about the company and what it does. The second version, I'm going to take roughly the same information, and I'm going to try to introduce the element of drama to it. So I'd like you as the audience to be paying attention to how the second version is different than the first version. And I'd also like to say that this isn't just something that we think is theoretically good for you. I got the feedback this morning from a professor in Startup Garage that the version of the pitch with drama was unexpected, surprising, and drew him in. So these techniques actually work, and we're getting feedback that these techniques can be influential. So I'm going to give you the fact version first. I'm Bryce Meredig. I'm a co-founder of a company called Citrine Informatics, and we do materials data. Materials are everywhere, even in your pocket. A lot of people are surprised to find out that the iPhone itself, which all of us or many of us have, is a marvel of materials technology. From the battery that powers it, to the cover glass that protects the screen from scratching, to the LEDs that light up the display. Materials are a critical component of many of the products you use every day, and at Citrine, we're making those materials better. There was nothing wrong with that pitch. It told you a lot about what we are and what our space is. But we would argue as a group here that you can take things to the next level by introducing some of the elements of drama that Ross was talking about. So here's the second version. When I show you a picture of the Apple iPhone, and I ask you to imagine what business opportunities it presents, what comes to your mind? Well, if you're like many people in Silicon Valley, your imagination immediately jumps to the device itself, the hardware, and all of the amazing software you can load on it. So you might talk about the smartphone market, the app market, the mobile gaming market. And these are huge business opportunities, of course, as those numbers show you. But the problem is that everyone in Silicon Valley and elsewhere in the world sees those exact same opportunities, and they're going after them too. At Citrine Informatics, when we look at the Apple iPhone, we see something completely different. We think materials. From the lithium-ion batteries that power the phones, to the cover glass that protects the screen from scratching, to the LEDs that light up the display, materials are an integral component of all kinds of technologies, and Citrine is using data to make those materials better.
Now I want to get some input from our audience about what Bryce did differently in his second pitch. Any volunteers? Yes?
I noticed that he used a dramatic pause before he introduced that they see a completely different opportunity.
Yes, that's exactly right. Bryce used some pause to create some tension about his pitch. Baojia?
Use the idea of contrast, and what everyone thinks and what his company thinks.
Yes, that's very true. He used visual contrasts of the same iPhone from two different perspectives. So, in summary, Bryce parachuted in without preamble. He used some pauses to create tension about his speech. And also, he used the visual contrast of the same iPhone from 2 different perspectives. He also delayed the reveal of information and used a dynamic volume. Actually, you could use the same techniques and strategies in your next presentation or communication. By incorporating dramatic, visual, verbal, and virtual contrasts, as Ross described earlier, you could take advantage of how human brain is wired to seek out drama and its resolution to get your message across. Drama helps your audience to better engage, process, and memorize your story. We are asking you to use a little bit drama in your next presentation or communication. As we demonstrated early, this helps your story to resonate better